Welcome to Life is for Living channel. I'm your host, Kylee Buckley, and I'm with David J. Riddell from the School of Living Wisdom. And welcome, David.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes. Well, today we thought that we would discuss the unbearable feeling, and I want to read a truth coach about it. Reacting badly, a trauma in the past causes an overreaction in the present. Acknowledge and compensate for it in order to carry on. So the unbearable feeling, sometimes where it's triggered and people have this reaction that is not normal. It's a major reaction.
Yes, my students have taken to calling it a UBF or a UBIF, and UBF standing for unbearable feeling. Blessure mortale is how it's known in Europe as the fatal wound. And I think that it's known in other places as a depressive hypothesis. But the unbearable feeling can really best be described as a bruise of the mind. It's usually, but not always, caused by childhood trauma. And I call it the gatekeeper of the brain or the permission giver of the mind. It's, in my view, the most troublesome and most common cause of human difficulty, and yet it's also the least diagnosed. There are reasons for that. One of them is that it hides. It hides itself, and all we see is the symptoms of its presence. And while it is in hiding, it is also sending up some very unpleasant effects into the life of the person suffering from it. And when you ask me who suffers from them, my answer is pretty much everybody. And until it's diagnosed and until reassurances, truth coaches, insights are put into place to heal it, it's going to cause pandemonium and chaos in your life. And if anybody dares to confront it, they're going to regret it, because you are going to do whatever you have to do to defend that sore spot of the soul. And so I call it the mind's permission giver, Kylee, because it really is the sentry at the gate. And before you can do anything, go anywhere, before you can try out or activate, it has to pass the test of the gatekeeper's question. And the gatekeeper's question is, if you do this activity, is this likely to invoke your bruise, your historic trauma, your unbearable feeling, that echo from the past, which has become your hideous emotion? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is yes, it will, then you will not be able to voluntarily or willingly indulge in that situation. You won't expose yourself. If it's danger, you won't take risks. If it's betrayal, you won't trust. If it's running late, then if you can't make it on time, you won't go. Or you'll put tremendous pressure on anybody who's at risk of holding you back or holding you up. If it's humiliation, you won't risk any situation that promises shame. I could go on and on and on, because most of my bread and butter is healing people of their unbearable healing. And when I've achieved that by the grace of God, then the result is the divorce is stopped, the marriage breakup is halted, the alienation is prevented, the dismissal or the sacking is prevented. The children learn to trust their parents once again, and the parents learn to trust the children once again. It just gets better and better. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Because as I say, if this permission giver does not grant access, then your life is effectively paralyzed. It's effectively crippled in that realm. And if that happens to be the death of your gifting and the death of your talent, well, that's just too bad. I'm sorry, that's what's going to happen. Because this is not an unpleasant feeling we're talking about, Kylie. This is unbearable. And
Mm.
it's an echo from the past that will not allow you to date a bloke, date a woman. It will not allow you to go out at night, or it won't allow you to go swimming or to have a pet or whatever, you name it. This thing really is the permission giver of our lives, and it's not usually identified, and it's almost never properly dealt with.
Mm.
Now, the most common question is people ask me, how do I know if I've got one?
Mhm.
Well, it's very simple. At the simplest level, the symptomology is extremely blatant. If you've got one of two things is happening. Either an area of your life is frozen and paralyzed. Those are all of those no-go zones. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go here, you can't go there. You couldn't possibly comply with this request or that command or instruction. The second and just as common symptom is that there will be an overreaction. It will be a bias, it will be a prejudice, it will be an emotion-based decision, it will be anger or rage where that is not appropriate by any measure. It will be an irrational reaction, and it will cause a fight in the marriage or a fight with the kids or a fight with God. Whatever, you'll do whatever it takes to avoid this feeling, which is basically an echo from the past. Sometimes it's a memory, more often than not, it's an echo. I say that because if it's a memory, it's much more likely to be addressed and dealt with. If it's a subconscious memory, as in an echo, it's almost certain you'll simply avoid it. And if your spouse or partner brings it up or your kids bring it up, they're going to regret it because they'll get shut down in short time and they'll get short shift. You will not go there or even discuss it. And this is what makes normally rational people irrational, normally talkative people silent. There'll be a shutting off and a closing down every time.
Mm. Okay, so if you feel somebody in your family or a friend has an area, how do you get them to get to the place where they want to address it? Would it be more the results of it, like the
Yes,
effect of it upon everybody else?
you've got to show them evidence that what they're doing or not doing is hurting people, particularly people they love. You've got to show them the fruit of the problem and the results of the problem, so they actually see the evidence. Otherwise, they'll just put it down to you being emotional or taking offense where none was intended, or put it down to your interpretation. So there's got to be an evidentially based presentation to them. And then you've got to have the right empowering question to back up your inquiry. A question like, when was the first time you ever experienced that feeling? Or what does this situation remind you of that is causing you pain? So
Mm-hmm.
we're getting into psychotherapy here, and I'm not afraid to encourage lay people to do a bit of psychotherapy. It goes on with or without formal permission. And so I do believe that many couples have survived in their own marriages because they've been willing to ask their spouse the tough questions, and their spouse has been willing to front up to them.
Right. So if there's a husband or a wife situation, let's say, can is it better to steer them then towards professional advice? And do many or most or all psychotherapists deal with the unbearable feeling? Do they know how to hit it on the head and to be able to address it and bring it to the healing that it needs?
Do all psychotherapists understand this? Do all psychotherapists have effective therapy for it? That's too big a question for me. I'm not sure God himself could answer that one. It is a bit like how long is a piece of string? Having said that, psychotherapists are known by their reputation. If you're getting a good recommendation on somebody, that's probably all you need to check them out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't like to criticize other psychotherapists, but I do know that their effectiveness varies greatly. Now, I make that hugely. And I guess it's like any profession, really. For me, I need 3 sessions with a person who's got a severe UBF. I need the first session to get on board and be sure that I am on board. I need the second session to make sure that what I'm giving them is effective and on point. I like to nail it by the end of the second session. And on the third session, I'm just checking to see that the therapy and the exercises are really doing the job. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense?
Yes, it does.
One,
And,
two, three. If I haven't got you free of it and on top of it by the third session, I'm not doing my job.
mhm. So, unbearable feelings. What sort of feelings are common that are
Oh,
unbearable
yeah.
feelings?
Yeah, well, the most common ones are the sort of things you could work out for yourself. For example, the fear of feeling guilty means that I can't be corrected, don't want to take correction, never want to own up, never want to fess up, don't like to back down, don't like to apologize. That's just the fear of shame and guilt. No, don't need a degree to understand that one. Some people just will not fess up, they have no reverse. And that's the reason for it.
Right.
Another one is the fear of abandonment. A child's deepest fear is the fear of abandonment, and you can carry that straight into your marriage or your job. That fear of rejection makes cowards out of brave people, and that fear of abandonment means that a spouse can hold their partner in a headlock that the spouse cannot leave. And so that fear of rejection can mean people compromise themselves and their own integrity, or it means that they will be the first to bring the situation to alienation so that they don't ever feel rejected themselves. There's all kinds of crazy making games result from the fear of rejection. But mind games and gaslighting are usually caused by that one, or the fear of feeling guilty. Another one might be the fear of powerlessness. Some people have got used to feeling powerless. It really doesn't disturb them. They admit that they're powerless. They admit that they haven't got total control, and they're actually okay with that. Others go absolutely bonkers when they feel unheard, when they feel like they can't make any difference. Then the panic rises, and then anything can happen. So there's 3 of the big ones, and that's just getting warmed up.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Thank you, David.
My job is to recognize from the story that my client is telling me, to recognize very, very quickly, perhaps in 20 minutes, what they have not been able to find in 20 years of life experience, and to show them what to do about that and to start the healing process. And sometimes sexual abuse victims have even been more severely injured by the therapy they've been through. Instead of healing the pain, they've been rehearsing it. And that's a huge mistake for amateur therapists. We don't spend a lot of time rehearsing old pain. All we need to know is what happened and then what we need to do about it to heal the scar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not to heal the scar. If it's scarred, we assume it's healing nicely all by itself and we leave it alone. We really open up a wound if it's red and swollen and affected. And you can always tell that because they're still touchy and overreacting whenever that hurty bit is touched on by somebody else in everyday life.
Right. And I suppose it's a difficult one to answer, but do people have often immediate relief once they start talking about their unbearable feeling and just put a label on it and realize that that's what it is?
On condition that we've identified the right one. I don't like poking around. I don't like missing it. I need to nail it as quickly as possible to be accurate. I'm doing keyhole surgery here, and I want to find it fast, and then I want to apply the truth coach as a dressing to it to start the healing process immediately. The right insight can heal it in a snap, or it'll have to be practiced, meditated on, and recited over some weeks for it to do the job. But when it's done its job, there will be no more sign of that irrational overreaction or withdrawal or shutdown that they've always been subject to.
Right, right. Well, it's a big topic. So,
Yes, and a vital one to mental health. Absolutely. In my business, I would say that I can heal at least 60% of my clients with that one concept. And it's almost never been previously or properly diagnosed in all the people that I see.
wow. Okay, so if you're looking at getting married or you are married, um, is it better to choose one or that does not touch your unbearable feeling, or because or a partner, for an example, you've got a fear of heights, and your partner doesn't like heights either, so that's great because we'll never go.
That
Or is it better
that
to
can be put down to a personality difference, really. But what we're talking about here is much more severe than just a personality clash. We're talking about two people who are deliberately kicking each other's bruises in order to gain power and control.
Oh, right.
We're
Yep.
talking here about, knowing that your partner has a bruise and pressing on that bruise whenever you need to control, dominate, or manipulate. And I always look for a potential cross matching of those bruises in pre marriage counseling, because no matter how compatible the couple, if they have a cross matching of bruises, and I don't mean they've both got the same bruise, if they have got a cross matching of bruises, then it's going to wedge them apart sooner or later, Christian or not. Um, um,
Mhm.
all things in common or not, it's going to wedge them apart.
Right.
Why? Because if you press on my bruises and you make a habit of it, I'm just going to get as far the hell away from you as I can.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you really analyze a breakdown in relationships where somebody escapes a job, a marriage, a church, a relationship, a flatmate, you'll find that it's not so much the person that they're fleeing, it's the way that person can make them feel by pressing on their unbearable feelings.
Interesting.
If
That's
I can heal their UBF, then suddenly this person is not such an emotional threat to them as they were.
yes, because you repeat, don't you, until you get it dealt with.
That's right.
Somebody else that comes along and does the same thing.
Same pain, different face.
Yeah, right. Well,
And I mentioned the cross matching. I'll just take 10 seconds to explain that, because it's not that you've got both got the same bruise. That usually results in sympathy and empathy. But let me give an illustration. Perhaps he can't stand to be interrogated, but she can't stand to not know exactly what's going on. Right there, you've got a cross matching. That can break a marriage by itself.
right. Makes sense.
We should do a whole session on cross matchings. They're fascinating things. And I'm looking for them in every hour of pre marriage counseling. I'm looking for them.
Right. Oh, well, we'll do that.
Sure.
That would be another topic.
Another
Excellent.
time.
All right. Oh, well, we'll leave it there for the unbearable feeling. For an introduction to that, I suppose we might go into that again later on, uh, different aspects of it, but that will do for today. Thank you, David.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye now.